Now, earlier, we spoke with Father Thomas Rosica. He's a deputy spokesman at the Vatican. We wanted to know how the Pope's historic trip to the U.S. is spiritual, but also political. Take a listen.
If you apply the gospel to any particular situation, and certainly Laudato Si flows from a vision of the gospel, there's going to be a brushing up or rubbing up against politics, because we're people and we relate to one another. And the gospel and the message of Laudato Si is a challenge to the entire church and to the world. You know, the question is, what kind of world are we going to leave to our children and our grandchildren? The Pope called this world we're living in many parts a filthy mess because we haven't cared for it. And so, of course, there cannot help but be an encounter, a clash, sometimes a challenge of politics. But it's politics in the best sense of the word, because when the gospel challenges us as a people, it makes us rethink what we're doing. It invites us to become better people, and it invites us to care for those around us, for the dignity of every human life and the dignity and the sacredness of creation.
Father Rosica, let's talk about the migrant crisis in Europe. The Pope has called on all Catholic parishes in Europe to take in refugees. Do you think the Pope will try to influence the President to take a larger role in this crisis?
I think the Pope is going to challenge all of us in America to do that, and he most likely will begin with the pastors of the Church. The Pope is not somebody who comes in and tells governments what to do, but he can ask the Church, as he did to the parishes in Rome several weeks ago, to open wide our doors. You know, the image I have, you have in the New York Harbor, you have the Statue of Liberty, and the words of Emma Lazarus's poem, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free." This is a land of immigrants. The Pope himself is an immigrant. There'll be echoes of that, I'm sure, in some of the talks. And the Pope is going to ask us to be generous and to open our doors, our hearts, and our minds. And that message will certainly echo. I think with the President, it'll be a wider angle, a wider perspective that's going to be offered. The things that they can agree on, and I'm sure there'll be some reference in a very nicely put way, a challenging way, of the things that we don't agree on. There's a meeting of mind and heart on many points between the President and the Pope. But there are certainly some glaring divisions and differences, but the Pope has a way of addressing them. He doesn't beat people over the head, but he touches people in their mind and heart and says, think seriously about how we're living and how we're taking care of one another.
Father, today the Pope is expected to canonize Junipero Serra, the Franciscan monk who established Catholic missions in California. But there is some controversy tied to that. There's a MoveOn.org petition asking Pope Francis to remove this monk from this canonization plans. In a quote, they say, "Spanish priests did little to recognize indigenous people as humans and did not come to their rescue when women were raped by soldiers and settlers. With over 90% indigenous mortality rates, Serra hardly saved many souls." What's your reaction to that?
My reaction is simply this: the rite of canonization and the beatification is not a declaration of perfection. It is rather a statement declaring one's holiness. Holiness, to become holy, to become a saint, the first requirement is to be a sinner, and every saint, there were some oversights, there were some things that weren't done properly, there were some things that could have been done better. We have to be very careful in using our own historical moment and reading that back into a period 200 or 300 years ago and applying all of our forms of analyses, sociological, spiritual, economic. We're passing a statement. We're declaring with Junipero Serra his holiness in his time, because against all odds he brought the gospel to these shores, especially to the west coast of the United States. I know how much the Pope would have preferred to do the ceremony in the United States on the west coast, but that was not possible with this visit. It's a short visit. The culmination of this visit, of course, the whole purpose of this visit is really because of the World Meeting of Families that's taking place in Philadelphia, and these other moments were then brought into the visit. But the canonization taking place here in the nation's capital is extremely important. You know, we have a statue of Junipero Serra in the Capitol Rotunda. This was a great missionary, a great evangelist, and a great builder of this country.
All right, Father Thomas Rosica, thank you so much for joining us on this historic day.
Thank you.